Hello and welcome. My name is David Hotler. I'm the community manager at CAMI, and welcome to our virtual ISTE booth. I'm so excited to be welcoming Jessica Mucci to the stage. She's a library media specialist at Avon Central School District in Avon, New York, and she is here to share how Book Creator bridges the gap between intentional and engaging tech use in the classroom. Jessica, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you here.
Hi, David. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, well, we're going to bring your screen up and let you get started.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do it. All right. So we're here today to talk about how we engage middle schoolers with intention through using instructional technology. I like to title this session Beyond the Eye Roll because as a middle school library media specialist, I get the eye rolls a lot. So today we're going to touch a little bit on how do we go past that. So my first thing is starting simple. Think to yourself, what do I need to teach and what are my students interested in? It is an absolute myth that you need to dress up in ridiculous attire like my coworker here and jump through hoops just to engage kids. While although those things are funny and great, it takes a lot of time, energy, sometimes money, and it's not needed. So let's start simple and talk about how we can do that without going through those hoops. So for this particular project, my task at hand, I needed things that needed to be taught, and then there were some clear challenges. And I'm going through a specific project today I did with my kids, but all of these strategies that I talk about can apply to any project that you do. So the task that I needed, the things I needed to be taught were the different elements of a graphic novel. We needed to touch on current world issues or controversies. We needed to touch on dialogue, and they needed to know how to work together in a group. Those were my simple what needs to be taught. Now my challenges. It was the end of the school year, so if you know, you know. I've lost just about every kid at this point. So I really needed to bring them back in for one final project. I always get the infamous, but I don't read, so this project's going to be boring because I don't like graphic novels, blah, 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 blah. All right. Our school is in a very rural, small town, so sometimes thinking about these world issues and controversies can be very daunting for my kids because they are secluded in a way and not really exposed to some of those things other than what they see on social media, in the news. So talking about those things in a way that isn't so daunting that they get overwhelmed and immediately shut down. And lastly, it's middle school. So students are in this group for 3 weeks working on this project. In middle school, one day they're friends, the next day they're fighting. It's a whole mess. So they needed to pick a group that they thought they could work well together and know that even if you're fighting, or as the kids say, have beef with one another one day, they're still going to have to work together. So those are just what I broke down so that I knew what I needed to teach and some possible challenges that I knew would come up. So I sat down with a particular group of 6th grade boys. They were very hesitant to start. They were one of my common I don't read groups. So I sat down and we brainstormed together. This is where the finding their likes and what they're interested in comes into play. So after talking and brainstorming together, the demographics of this group were they were 3 6th grade boys. They have always lived in a small rural town, in our town. They're middle class, their families are a mix of divorced and married, and one of the students' dads is a police officer. Now, I wasn't planning to bring that up, but it came up in our conversation, so I wrote it down because one of the kids felt it necessary, it was important to them. So their likes, now this is where it gets random, but we go with it. They like pickles, brain rot, YouTube, comedy, sports, video games, technology, and fancy cars. Now, that's a lot of random things, so we're just going to keep it and move on. And then dislikes, school, reading, waking up early, and when people cheat in sports. So these are also 3 very athletic kiddos. So if someone cheats in a sport and it's not fair, that is a big problem for them. So now that we had these things written down, it was time to select some things that they really wanted to focus on. This is, again, where this interest piece is coming in so that I can start to engage them. So what they chose. For whatever reason, they were very stuck on that one of the kids' dad's a police officer. So we went with it. They really wanted to focus on pickles, comedy, and fancy cars, and when people cheat in sports. So again, trying to figure out how these are all going to go together. But like kids usually do, they surprised me. But before I released them into the book creator setting, I needed to set them up for success. And this is a big piece for the engagement part of it, because if they feel overwhelmed or they don't know where to start, they're immediately not going to be engaged. So this can be done as paper and pencil. It can be digital. It can work anyway. But basically, it's just a storyboard for them to get their ideas down. And it also gives them a little bit of a timeline or a path to do when they're creating their book in Book Creator. So it just introduces the characters, the problem, gives them a little pausing point for, let the intensity build up. How do they solve the problem? Is the problem solved? And then is there an extending ending? A lot of kids, I've noticed, love to go for the cliffhangers. So that's where it would kind of wrap up. But this group, you will see, chose not to do that. All right, so this is where I let their creative juices flow. The current world issue they picked was increased crime because of the police officer and the cheating in sports. So the problem they wanted to focus on is that someone is stealing money from the bank, and that means they are cheating in life. So instead of cheating in sports, we moved cheating in life. And then the solution, where their cucumber detectives catch the bad sour pickles and give them a potion that changes them back into cucumbers. Again, this is where they surprised me because it's weird, but it works. Another thing I like to note is that my students are already familiar with Book Creator. We use it all the time. So I didn't need to take the time to explain the ins and outs to them. They were already familiar with that. So that helped a lot as well. So now that they have their base of what they're doing, now they're starting to get excited about it. So the engagement is increased because it's all things that they're interested in. And at this point, they've kind of, and I say kind of, have forgotten that this is a school project. So this is their result. We're going to go through their book real quick. This is the pickle robbery. So you'll notice we have our 2 cucumber detectives and our 2 pickle robbers. And I'm not going to read the whole book, but I'm just going to point out a few things. So these kids were very specific in what they wanted in their books. Like, they really wanted a banana couch, which to me, I had never heard of. I didn't know that existed, but yet they were able to find one, put that into their background for whatever reason. It was important to them, so we went with it. So their detectives have heard that there's a bank that's being robbed. They are going to go find these bank robbers. This is where the fancy cars piece comes in. They liked the pink motorcycle and the Ferrari, so they popped that in there, and that is the Detective Cucumber's car of choice. They are going to the bank. Now that they are in the bank, they have found some money that was left behind, and it is covered in pickle juice. So now they start to know who is behind this robbery. And here we have a nice close-up, which is a big element of a graphic novel. So they put that in there to emphasize that. And then they are talking about the background in Unsigmaville. So that was a lot of slang that was popular then, as most of you know. So they put that in there too. But again, it's their interest. So if it engages them, I was okay with it. And they have a little bit of a backstory that they know one of the robbers and they know where his potential hideout is. Again, this is where they got really specific. They wanted it to be in a toilet paper store. Now, I told them that that doesn't necessarily exist, just a store of toilet paper, but again, that's what they wanted and it didn't harm anything, so they went with it. So now they're looking all around for their rubbers. They're following the pickle juice. Now they're in the bunker, so again, making it their own. And now they confront the bad pickle robbers. And then this is where they surprised me. I thought they were going to stop there. They found them. They went to jail. That's over. However, they weren't satisfied with that because they truly wanted to tackle the issue of increased crime and what would be a possible solution for that. And they thought it's not just locking people up. They have to be good too by the end of it. So they had their cucumber detectives go back to the lab. They added baking soda. I don't know. They must have seen that somewhere, but again, it works. They drive back to the jail where our pickle robbers are waiting. They drink the potion that they created. Again, we have the elements of a graphic novel right here with the zap. And then you'll see that the bad pickle robbers have now turned into happy cucumbers. And so that is the moral of the story, is not only are they paying their time for being robbers, they are now better people, or cucumbers as well. And then they really wanted to tie it up at the end that they all became friends again and are now Investa cucumbers. So that was their project. And again, it totally surprised me because they were able to incorporate all of the things that they really enjoyed and still hit all of the marks that I was asking them to do. They had dialogue, they had the elements of a graphic novel, they had the world issue and controversy, and they did work well all together because it was something they were all interested in. So that was really nice. So some key ways that Book Creator made this project successful specifically. So the Canva and Adobe AI image generator integrations allowed the students to bring their very specific ideas, like a pickle detective, into real life. The comic book outlines worked perfectly for their graphic novel structure. Sometimes that can be really hard for them to decide how the panels will look and stuff like that. But having that already organized for them was huge. Students were able to collaborate on their books, even if they weren't sitting right next to each other. So in middle school, we have band lessons, we have counseling sessions, we have doctor's appointments. So out of the 3 weeks that students were working on this project, there wasn't too many days where the kids, all 3 of them, were together. So they were actually able to collaborate even if they weren't together, which for our time's sake of being at the end of the year and only having 3 weeks worked out great. I could also see what the students were working on in real time, and I was able to step in if they needed redirection. Again, because these students were so engaged, because it was something they were interested in, they really didn't need much redirection other than if they got stuck and wanted to bounce an idea off of me. And students were engaged because they're working on something that included their interests. They took ownership in it and they felt really proud of what they were doing. What was really cool is I had a group during this project that they finished a little bit early and they asked if they could make a second book with a second world problem. And to me, that was huge because when do you ever get middle schoolers that ask if they can do more of the project? So that just shows that how engaged and interested they were in it. So this was just one example of how using technology in an way that, it's intentional can really help benefit not only you as the teacher, but the students and what they're getting out of it. So at this time, if this was live, I would ask for any questions. But virtually, for anyone that would like this presentation, feel free to scan the QR code or email me at any time, and I'd love to answer your questions.
Jessica, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to share such an impactful way to reach more students and keep them engaged in some of these topics that we know don't traditionally spark their interest. I can't thank you enough, and I will see you soon at ISTE.
Sounds great. Thanks, David.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.